Hi, and welcome to another edition of Probeline. Thanks for joining us. Today we're going to meet Reece, who is a candidate for Aspen City Council, and try and get to know him a little bit since he wants to come and represent you in City Council. Hi, Mark.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time. So this is your first time running for public office?
Yes, it is.
Well, why are you doing that?
Well, funny, a number of years ago, I dabbled with the idea, and I always thought it would be something that I could do to help my community. And when I actually got down and thought about it, I realized that I wasn't equipped at the time and didn't have the time.
Yeah.
And I didn't think it would be fair to the community if I wasn't able to go in head first. So it started about 8 or 9 years ago when I saw some development going on in town that I thought there was definitely some bait and switch going on, or maybe not the right questions weren't asked, and I didn't follow through and go to some of the city council meetings and raise my concerns, and I always regretted it. And if you fast forward a few years, I thought about running again, and I had just began to build the bowling alley up in Snowmass. And once again found myself in a position where I thought that it was very difficult to get a lot of things done due to miscommunication, red tape, just things should be easier. Mm-hmm. But I found myself not able to dedicate the time and the energy to running for city council, and that wasn't Aspen. That was in Snowmass, but I just thought it would be a great starting point. Fast forward 2 years, I had my daughter, and in that situation, I definitely did not have the time or the energy to pursue what I wanted to do, and that was run for city council. So in the last couple years, there's probably not a week that went by I didn't think about it and say, what are you going to do when the time comes? I'll see where I'm at. And I always equated it to the reason I haven't bought a dog yet is because I don't have the time and the energy to be fair and be a good owner. And now with city council, I've realized that I've cleared the plate. I'm in a really good spot right now. I have the time, I have the energy. I've done a lot more homework. I'm more seasoned. I've been here 12 years. That's by no means a long time, but I think I'm a lot more valuable an asset being 8 years in from when I first had the idea about running for city council.
Well, this has been kind of a long-standing desire, it sounds like, to...
Yeah, but full disclosure, when I first decided I wanted to run for city council, I was quite insincere about it. I was more, griping and waving my arms in the air and
frustrated.
And that's kind of what built me to the point saying, well, you can talk about things all day long, but when are you going to take action? Because that's why things don't get done. So I love it here. And Aspen's been fantastic to me and my family. And I always thought that the best thing you can do for your community is to give back. And I think I've done that in a lot of really neat ways with, my businesses, trying to be a great member of our community. But ultimately, I think public service is the best way to do it.
What are the businesses? You mentioned building the bowling alley.
I built a bowling alley in Snowmass. I originally tried to do it in Aspen, and that was after being here for 4 to 5 years, and basically surveying. I don't just like I said, jump in without putting my toe in the water first, and I like to do a lot of research, and I looked in Aspen and I tried every way possible to try to figure out how to put a bowling alley in Aspen, because I knew down the road at some point I wanted to, plant my roots here and build a family, and family amenities are really, other than skiing and some of the things in the summer, are what our town was lacking, in my opinion. I mean, what do you do when it rains?
Yeah.
When it's not sunny, when it's snowing sideways and 2 degrees outside. And of course, it's wonderful dining, you know, shopping, but that only gets someone like me and a family so far. So I was very lucky to have met a realtor in town named Ruth Kruger, who really got on board with me about making this become a reality. So we started going outside of the circle a little bit, and she identified a spot in Snowmass called the Bedford Ballroom. I never heard of it, and I've been upstairs 100 times. And we went and looked at it, and the second I walked in, I said, this is it. So I purchased a bowling alley in Warren, Michigan, in Detroit. I took it apart, I put it in semi-trucks, and I drove it out here, and I put it back together. They told me I couldn't do it, and I say this all the time. Don't tell me I can't accomplish something, because that'll just make me do it, right? So I got it done, and it's been a wonderful success. A great family amenity to the entire area, Snowmass in particular. Brings in groups from, you know, outside that typically, you know, Snowmass may have gotten competition from other ski areas. And hopefully that's just, you know, the part of Snowmass that might have tipped their hat in our direction. So that's in very good hands now with a couple of my employees who purchased it off of me a few years ago. And so if you get
So it wasn't just the construction part of it. You ran the business.
Oh,
and,
I
and,
ran
and
it.
then
Yeah,
eventually
I did it.
Sold it.
I did it for 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, so from conception to completion, you know, from start to finish. I drove nails. I put up drywall. Now, don't get me wrong, I had a lot of help.
Right.
Lots of help. It's a big place.
Yeah.
And I learned an awful lot about the bowling business too. so yeah, so it's in good hands. Those guys are great up there. And,
That's wonderful.
and
And
I
then
wish them the best.
you mentioned you're involved in a restaurant now.
Yes, I am. I took a lease out in the Airport Business Center about 3 years ago. And, you know, I look for areas and I look for spaces that, you know, that we're putting in sensible projects, you know, and for me, I look at, you know, first and foremost, the demographics in the lease, because without good demographics and without a good lease, survival is very hard, particularly in the bar and restaurant business. And I've been very lucky at it so far. I'd rather be lucky than smart when it comes to that, so I don't know which one it is, but it's working. So from there, I've been actually working on the project for 3 years, just got open a few months ago. And it was a number of, I had the bowling alley at the same time. And when I sold the bowling alley, it really freed me up to do a lot on that front. So yeah, it's a local amenity. You know, we got North 40 back there. We've got hundreds of apartments, private homes, condos, 1,500 people in a workforce there on any given day. And there are very few amenities out there that complement the area. So for me, it was a natural fit.
That's amazing. And then I can't imagine the challenge of opening a restaurant during COVID.
Yes, definitely challenging, but I look at things a little different than I think a lot of people who start businesses, developers, restaurant owners, whatever the project may be. And oddly enough, I always look at my pro formas as if we're going to have a zombie apocalypse. And if my business can survive in an apocalypse, then I'll go ahead with the project. And horribly enough, we had COVID.
Yeah.
So even with COVID numbers and getting open at a very inopportune time, having a small place, low overhead, a relatively small staff, it's working. I feel for some of these businesses.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how they're doing it. And you know, part of my goal here and running for city council is now to try to help them, see what I can do with my knowledge, what I've learned, my skill set to help them through what we're not sure is going to end anytime soon.
Yeah, I wondered if that, you know, listening to what you were saying, if that was part of the motivation, that is a certain amount of, if it's, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm about to.
Sure.
frustration with trying to start and operate businesses in a regulatory environment? Is that?
Well, I think, and if we are talking about COVID,
Okay.
and some of the regulations that have come upon us, it's extremely difficult. And, there's some days I wake up and I just think it's completely unfair. And there's other days I wake up and go, well, if I think if they want to be fair to me, maybe I'm being unfair to somebody else. So I think it's really difficult decisions
Yeah.
that are being made. And I think there are points in time where I've wanted to put blame. But I mean, there's one thing to blame here, and it's something we have absolutely no control over, and it's COVID. My motivation for running for council has never been COVID, but now it's strengthened my resilience to help make things better and have that point of view that somebody else may not have because they haven't been in the restaurant business, the hospitality business, hotels. I wouldn't expect to understand how a car dealership has been affected by this, so it might serve me well to be in contact with people that work in the car industry.
Yeah.
So I think I can bring a lot to the table as far as that goes to help our community not only get through this, but heal when we get to the other side.
Well, you mentioned your motivation. What is some of your motivation to?
Well, the original motivation was it was a development issue in town here that a lot of people know about. Actually, I realized lately that not a lot of people know about. Back was 2012. They closed the Cooper Street Bad Billy's space, if you recall. The developers were looking for change in variances to put up a multi-million dollar condo.
I'm sorry, is that downstairs bar?
Well, there's no downstairs bar there.
But there was.
Well, there was. Bad Billy's was there.
Yeah.
Cooper Street was there.
Right.
It was an Italian restaurant prior to that.
Right.
And in a deal with the city to change the variances on the property, the developer promised that they would put in rent-controlled, affordable restaurant space in the basement in return. That was 10 years ago. And there's still nobody there. But 10 years ago is when I first said, the day I read about it in the paper, it's never gonna happen. And I don't have a crystal ball. I think a lot of people were saying the exact same thing. And my thought at that time was, and I should have gone to the council and shared my grievance and my knowledge, which was limited in Aspen at the time. But I've been doing this for a while. I should have lent my expertise to them to say there are a number of questions you need to ask before you sign this deal. And I didn't. Nobody did. And I believe that if somebody in town who was in the restaurant business and the hospitality business, maybe even just, in small local business, had been on city council, it wouldn't have passed. Or it would have passed knowing that there would actually follow through. That's what really bothered me about it. That was my original motivation. But that being said, I was quite insincere about it at the time because I didn't follow through. From that point on, I just, I've listened and learned in town. I talk to a lot of people, especially being the bar and restaurant business. That's what you do. It's hospitality. Right. You speak to people. You communicate. You hear a lot. And the bowling alley did take up a considerable amount of time, but what really changed my attitude was my daughter. When I had my daughter and I realized that this is it, this is where we are, we're not going anywhere, that's when I'm like, okay, I'm throwing the hat.
Yeah.
And
how old is she now?
She's 4.5. So, it's now the timing's good. The elections kind of fell on, very busy times for me. So I think about my daughter and I say, how are things going to be for her if she decides to stay here, which I want to ensure that she does. I want families to stay here. I want families to come here. I just want to make sure that, even though it's only been 12 years, that Aspen stays Aspen. and I'm sure there's people that have been here for 32 years that are going to say, well, he has no idea. But let's at least keep it where I remember, and if we can help move it in that direction, that would be great.
Yeah, it does seem like when we all come to town, it's the snapshot of what it was like when we got here that oftentimes defines how we think it ought to go forward or not go forward.
Well, there's not a week that goes by that somebody says something, remember, and I go, wow, I forgot it was even there.
Right.
And I've only been here, 12 years.
Right.
But I do strongly believe that, growth is a very important thing for any town, but it's got to be smart, well-balanced growth. And I think at times in this town there's been a lack of critical thought when it comes to development. I think there are opportunities and people that have come to this town and given us opportunities that I think are really amazing ideas that can really help Aspen grow together and make it, a better and better and better place to live, for the people that have been here for 50 years and for the people that are going to move here in 5 years.
Sometimes people criticize the local government for being too strident on trying to control growth, saying no too much. And then other people say, no, they say yes too much. We need to hold on to that.
Well,
and on that kind of spectrum, where would you fall?
I think it's easy to armchair quarterback city council unless you take the time and you are privy to the information that they have in front of them. Mm-hmm. So I think most people in this town, they get headlines from a newspaper or they talk to their friends, family. Rarely have I ever known many people to actually talk to the developer. And from what I've seen, the developers that have come to this town are a pretty open book. They're accessible. I'm surprised that there's not more outreach from the developers to the community, or maybe there is and it's not covered as much as it should be, or in the right light. So for me to say that the city says no too often, I don't understand why no would be so definitive, because there's always options.
Right.
And in my opinion, though, if we give developers in this town options and they're not happy with our options, then the next guy will be. If you want to come to Aspen and do business, I think it should be on Aspen's terms. I don't see any reason that we need development for any given developer more than they need us. We're Aspen.
Yeah.
I mean, we're Aspen. There's a reason they're coming here. So, and as far as the too many yeses, I guess I could revert back, 10 years and not quite sure why they said yes to the project that originally got me going. But I didn't have all the information. I think in general, I just like to make sure that whatever we do is thought about critically, makes sense, and it's followed through with to the T. Make a plan, start it, finish it.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
So, developers come to Aspen, you came to Aspen. What brought you here?
That's a good one. I wasn't coming here. I was going to Lake Tahoe.
Oh.
Yeah.
Can we help you? Are you a bit lost?
Yes, I'm a bit lost. I've still never been to Lake Tahoe. I was in Naples, Florida at the time, which was my home base.
Is that where you grew up? Or?
No, I grew up between Pennsylvania, New York, and Connecticut. Went to Penn State University. After I graduated Penn State, I did a number of different jobs, trying to find myself. In hindsight, maybe I should have just moved to a ski town, but I wish I could go back. And I worked my way down the East Coast. I was in D.C. I made Atlanta home base for a while. I ended up at my parents' home in Florida for a bit. And I had a friend reach out to me, and I went to Naples. I was in Naples for 15 years, and I didn't ski for 15 years. I wasn't particularly a beach guy. I love the water. I love sailing. But I hadn't gone skiing for 15 years, and a buddy of mine who was a Continental pilot, retired, said, "Hey, Reece," and everybody calls me Reece.
Okay.
Mark Reece, but everybody calls me Reece. If you call me Mark and I don't say hello, it's because I'm used to be calling Reece, right? So Wayne said, "Hey, I got some tickets to Switzerland, first class free, let's go." And I said, "Oh, I haven't skied in 15 years." And he's like, "Oh, you'll like getting on a bike." Went to Switzerland. Yes, the same 10 days I was in Switzerland, I met up with some friends, went biking, went hiking, went sailing in Lake Luzerne, skiing, had a wonderful, wonderful time. And when I got back to Naples, just something didn't fit.
Did it seem strangely flat and humid?
Yes, flat and humid, sandy, palm tree, stop sign, red light. And I specifically recall sitting at my computer, and I was looking at some financial numbers and running some ideas, and I punched in Glacial Lake, North America, Lake Tahoe. I packed up everything and I was out in 30 days, driving to Lake Tahoe, truck, trailer, in tow. And back in those days, they had this wonderful piece of technology called MySpace. I think to the young folks, it's now called Facebook. And I don't know how, but somehow a friend of mine that lived in Aspen saw on MySpace that I was going to Lake Tahoe, and he said, "Stop in Aspen to say hello, it's right there." Well, back in those days, the MapQuests weren't quite as good as they are today. It was October 28th, took me over Independence Pass with a big truck and a 30-foot trailer, and I ended up downtown center Aspen, white-knuckled, because it snowed. And I stayed for the night. I stayed the next day, and that evening, I went out in Aspen to see what Aspen was all about, and I got 3 job offers. And I was advised that going to Lake Tahoe at the end of October is probably not the best idea. There'll be no jobs. There'll be nowhere to live. I didn't know the first thing about a resort ski town. Stay for the winter. If you don't like it, come April, May, go to Lake Tahoe. Well, 12 years later, I've still never been to Lake Tahoe. So this is it.
Yeah,
This is it. Yeah.
So what do you find most appealing about being here?
It's got to be the people. I'm a people watcher. I mean, I can entertain myself for half a day just walking around downtown Aspen, because part of that is talking to people I know, a part of that is talking to people I don't know, and just watching the interaction when our town is bustling. So I think that's what it is for me. Of course, I mean, the scenery. You're pretty close to just about everything. I mean, Denver's just close enough. Not that
But it's there.
it's there.
Yeah.
Grand Junction's there. Rudai Reservoir, that's where you'll find me in the summertime. It's there. There's so many amenities here, and I was shocked to discover that. Well, Aspen wasn't just a ski town. The summers, are to me better than the winters. There's so many more activities in this town. There's so much more to do. The scenery, the clean air. It's safe. I should lock my door more often, but I don't. So that's what it is. There's such a draw to this town. There's energy here. And there's it's one of those places that's exceptional. It's exceptional in so many different ways. And when I describe it as exceptional, I'm not just talking about food, drink, shopping, skiing. The wealth of knowledge in this town, people gravitate to it. And I think like-minded people or talent kind of end up in the same space at one point in time or another. So you never know who you bump into here. I mean, I met a NASA scientist last weekend. I never would have guessed it.
Mm-hmm.
We got into a little conversation. I'd seen him before, but finally had a conversation. I was like, wow, this guy built the space shuttle. And he did. So, it's one of those places.
That's
so
wonderful.
that's a draw for me, and everything here is exceptional. The school district's exceptional. Just everything about this place. So
We have a couple minutes left, and I
Sure.
want to make sure that you have a chance to get across whatever points you might want to get across.
absolutely.
So, I can ask you a little bit more about, what you studied at Penn State. Have you ever spent time in Bellefonte, where my wife is from?
I have been to Bellefonte many times to the
Yeah.
German brew house.
Yes,
Yeah,
as have I.
yeah. Schnitzels. It was called Schnitzels. Remember?
Yes.
Yeah.
But you might have something that you want to get across.
Yeah. Well, I talk a lot, so I didn't realize time flies when I talk too much, right? No, I think my run for city council is coming out of my desire to pay back the community. As I said before, I think that's the most important thing you can do is service to your community. So I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. And it's time for me to start serving my community that served me so well. I was extremely lucky to get into our affordable housing. That's what kept me here. So I'm very passionate about it, yet I don't discuss it too much because I know it's going to be the topic of discussion. It's going to get covered by every other candidate. And I'm willing to get into that conversation. I have some great ideas about it. For me, I think it's very important that in our town that is so exceptional that we need to make sure that we take care of our people in this town. And I mean the locals. I love the tourists. I know that they help fuel this town. I love having them here. But first and foremost, we need to take care of our locals. There's been a horrible, horrible problem in this town with mental health, with depression, with suicide, and nobody wants to talk about it. I'm going to talk about it. Our housing, our financial stability, all these things feed into making our local community strong. So it's a circle of life in this town. And if we can take care of all these things, we can help really take care of our local health, mental health, which I know is not on the tip of everybody's tongue. But if I can tie it all together, we can really make a difference. And beyond that, I'm the kind of person that looks at a project, conceptualizes it, and takes it to completion. I think that's something that's been extremely difficult for our city council to do, and not at anybody's fault. But I think if you have too many like-minded people, it's really difficult to get things done. If you have too many contrasting people, it's difficult for things to get done. So we need to find a balance and get people on city council that have certain skill sets and experiences that can help finish projects from conceptualization to completion. And I think I'm that guy.
Reece, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to get to know you a little bit better, and we appreciate the time.
Thank you so much. It's been great being here.
Thank you. And that concludes another edition of Probeline. We'd like to thank the supporters of GrassRoots Community Network for helping us put this on the air, and for you joining us. Thank you. Thanks.
Oh, good. Thank you very much.